Tim here at PAX. We've got
Yon
and
Nick,
and we are playing Chess the Gathering. We're already playing with rules. These guys came up with a new rule that you can cast things on line of sight for any piece, and we're counting line of sight as a continuation of your movement. So for a twin, it would be like the king spaces, but almost like a queen because they can still see that way. For a bishop, it's only diagonals and stuff like that. So we're gonna see how that works. There was an instant ricochet that gave a check.
Wait,
so
your wall is
you
only
moved
2
back.
mana? Oh no, it's 4 mana. Yeah, you can't cast it.
Uh-oh. You might want to take back that move.
He's cheating already.
This guy.
He's cheating already.
Yeah, this is why we got to make a digital version of this.
You know,
that's different than Magic. Originally I had the land cards, and then I got rid of them for the creature count, but it holds over.
I think it's good.
Bishops are one of those things, it's the weakest creature, but casting them gets you mana faster.
Right. You want to make the game like a little bit more like intense, like rule-wise. You can make different pieces. Some pieces that are maybe like weak on the board but generate more mana.
Oh.
And pieces that are like really strong but like have like cumulative upkeep.
Right.
So, like pieces that can like move like a knight or a queen.
Right.
Like they would take a mana each turn to like keep going.
So have you ever heard of Natural Selection, the video game? Okay. So the guy I was playing with, one of the guys who made that, and he said, what about a piece you put down, it can't move, it can't do anything, all it does is just sits there and generates 1 mana per turn.
Yeah. Right, okay.
And then
my goal, I can just take it out.
Then you can just take it out,
but it's set it like a trap.
Right. And also in chess, like that's a move for you that you're gonna have to use to kill that thing. Yeah. So that might be fun.
But also the trap, because I put a guy next to guy in a strategic place.
Defend it.
I can put it in a place where I'm putting a guy to both defend twin, but also
defending the mana station or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Whatever.
So an interesting thing about the line of sight mechanic is that when you spawn someone, you're always defended, which is a very powerful move in chess. So I don't know whether that'll be really good or just too powerful every time you spawn. Should be interesting. So what are your impressions? What did you like? What did you dislike?
Early on, I felt like I couldn't do anything because I felt like I was always having to do stuff to defend myself. So once he got a guy, he could get a guy over here before me, so he could start summoning guys on my side. I think if I didn't have so many bishop summons early to get on a mana advantage, I never could have held out, and I would have just been overrun and died. When I pulled that swamp tile, if I did not have that one,
you drew it?
If I did not have that one swamp tile, I would have died. There was no way. I had no ways to go. I was almost dead twice. And then this last turn, I was able to move to a spot that I wasn't in check-in, and so that allowed me the freedom to sort of just throw. I cast both of those wraparound.
To make the game more consistent, I think there should be pieces like pawns or like basic spells that you should always be able to cast.
Right.
So like instead of like mulliganing till you get like a rook or a bishop, you should always have like a pawn available for 1 mana that can like only move like a pawn could. Right. But if you summon a pawn, you can't summon another piece. So it's like it prevents you later in the game from like summoning a pawn for really cheap and then summoning like a queen. So it's like in the beginning of the game when I don't draw as many like cheap creatures as he does, I still have the opportunity to keep up mana wise.
Right.
Very early on he had like 6 to 7 mana a turn, and like he's casting like 2 to 3 spells to protect himself.
Right.
And the only way I can apply pressure is by like summoning and putting him in check, summoning and putting him in check. Because if I don't put him in check for 1 turn, he can summon like 2 creatures on my board where I'm done. Right. So I don't have the mana to. I just didn't have creatures to summon.
Right. So that's kind of like that's the different strategies, right? Like yours was like an aggressive, try to kill him right away, and yours was more like a, just because the cards you got, was more like a try and outlast and over time get stronger. And so you felt like under pressure at the beginning, and you felt like at the end like you just got crushed by mana.
Play like RTSs, you can either macro or micro.
Right.
You know, like I can like macro my economy up.
Right.
Or I can like summon really strong creature and move it around. The whole idea I think of like always being able to summon a pawn is that you're never limited by the cards you draw.
Right. But that's a good thing from a deterministic standpoint.
Right.
But chess is a deterministic game. This game is slightly less deterministic. There's a little bit of luck in the hands and stuff like that.
Okay.
So maybe if you played 10 games.
I don't like the fact that there's like a optimal hand almost.
Oh yeah,
like any amalgamation of cards that you can draw, they should be relatively close in power level.
Right.
Whereas if you open your hand hand and you have like a draw 3 card plus 3 bishops plus a queen, I feel like there's nothing better than like you just play a bishop, play 2 bishops, draw 3 cards, and then now you can either summon a queen or play like
and that would be cool in poker because poker lasts like 2 minutes.
Right.
But if they get that hand and you play a whole thing, it would be frustrating. I've seen it both ways. I've seen people play the mana, the bishop first, and people play the rook first, because then they have a more powerful thing out.
Right.
And both ways I've seen work. That's what I'm hoping is for the balance that you're saying that you're not seeing. I'm hoping that if you have stronger characters at the beginning, maybe you can crush them, because you almost did it a few times.
Right.
And if you have more mana, then maybe in the long run, if you can hold out, you can win.
Maybe you didn't have as many spells as you did.
Like, if I didn't have
that swamp.
Like if I had an opening hand, right, and you got a queen and I didn't, like if you got a decent card, that 4 mana, like that extra mana you spent, like a ricocheting bishop could be really dangerous even to a queen.
Like you're saying, if you summon a queen right next to a twin, that's super powerful. And because of the line of sight rule that we tried, that queen will be defended.
Right.
So then it's really powerful.
It's really strong.
So is that good or bad? So what we had on the other rules that you haven't played is they would have to, pick a row or column, and it would be more random.
Right.
And so that thing might not be defended.
If you always had to summon creatures on your side of the board, there'd be a lot more opportunity for people to fight each other, like for the individual pieces to fight each other.
But the only question is, would it slow the game down like a lot?
It would.
Yeah.
But there would be more action.
Yeah, there'd be more piece taking.
Yeah.
Right. At those
But then you
pinch
could
points.
Really bog down the game. Like if I swamp up here and wall this, I can just sit back and just continuously take forever.
Well, that's how the wraparound comes around, actually.
Oh, that's true.
Wraparound's really good at like getting around any terrain, because you have the wraparound queen.
Right.
I think my ability to take her